Welcome to ControlTalk NOW, your smart buildings podcast with Ken Smyers and Eric Stromquist. ControlTalk NOW, your source for control news you can use. And now, here is Eric.
Hi, and welcome to ControlTalk NOW, your smart buildings videocast and podcast for the week ending April 19th, 2015. I am your host, Eric Stromquist, and I am joined, as usual, by the man, the myth, the legend, the one, the only, Kenny Smyers from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. But Kenny, you are not in Pittsburgh anymore.
No, I'm not. In fact, I'm in Atlanta. I'm in Eric's ad hoc studio until he gets the finished studio completed. Thank you for the invite, and it's a special day at the Stromquist family. I had an opportunity to have lunch with Anna, Spencer, Axel Bengt, and Evelyn Grace, and we celebrated Eric's birthday today. So a big day in the Stromquist family, and very, very cordial and very gracious event, and also your daughter Britt. So just a wonderful day, and congratulations on another birthday, and working on your birthday, it's an inspiration.
Well, I appreciate it, buddy. I tell you what, it was great to have you there. We all went out to lunch. Anna had a great party for us, so it was a lot of fun, and especially special that the man, the myth, the legend, drove all the way to Pittsburgh just for my birthday. Well, not quite, because Kenny and I are both, as well as his brother Dave, are headed to Savannah later this week for the CGNA, Controls Group North America meeting that will be held in Savannah, and that's going to be quite a show. We talk a good bit about Controls Group North America on the show because CGNA is a group of like-minded distributors, like 40 of the top distributors on the planet. We get together, we try to figure out how we can be better, how we can provide better solutions, and Kenny and his brother Dave, DMS Controls Group, are our newest members, so this will be your DMS Controls Group's first
Inaugural event, yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to be good stuff there, buddy. I can't wait
We're looking forward to
have you guys down there. And Savannah, be a fun city, man.
Well, it's gorgeous. It's I've read that it's the prettiest city in America, according to a lot of the polls. But the old historic buildings or something, and I'm really interested because it's a great mix of like you said, like-minded distributors that really are staying on top of all the trends that we're so focused on. And it's a great mixture of vendors, so it's see the new products. So it's a very time well spent, and still have a social engagement. So we're really looking forward to it.
It will be. And Savannah, for our listeners that are outside of Georgia, Kenny's right, is one of the most gorgeous cities. It was one of the few cities that didn't get burned by Sherman when he came through and burned Georgia. And rumor has it that he had a mistress in Savannah, so he spared Savannah, and it is gorgeous. If you've seen the movie Forrest Gump, most of that was filmed there. So it's got the old squares and all that. So we'll be there next week. Kenny Hill will probably be broadcasting, or possibly broadcasting Control Talk Now from Savannah next week. Hopefully we can get some of the folks from CGNA on there. So it's going to be a big time. So Big Dog, what do we have up first this week?
Well, we've got a bunch of stuff to cover. The first is another major event taking place in London at this time. It's the Open for Innovation, the Tridiumâ Niagara Falls Summit in London, England. And it's a great show, and it started today. So I'm sure there's some news to report. Unfortunately, we couldn't be there, but as we get the information, we're going to post it. But in the meantime, we had a very nice video from Nino DiCosmo that previewed what is going to happen and why Niagara Falls Summit is so important there, or the Open for Innovation. Actually, we use the summit. It's referred to the American side, North America, where the Open for Innovation Niagara Falls Summit, European version, they distinguish between the two. But it's going on right now. I'm sure it's a lot of very interesting people there, a lot of interested people to see what Niagara Falls is going to bring and how it's going to affect their businesses.
It's going to be great. I'm sorry we couldn't be there. We were invited to come cover it, but obviously with the baby, it was being a little too far away from home. But Nino DiCosmo, Jenny Graves, our friend Ed Merwin, all of them are going to be there. And Kenny, it's sort of a theme we've been tracking. I mean, the world seems like it is getting a lot smaller. And as you know, we covered the EZIO conference last year in Madrid. We'll be going to Paris this year to cover it. And if you get a chance to go to one of these world conferences, I strongly encourage you to do it, Kenny, because one of the things we're learning is that it really is sort of the same all over the world. And it's really cool to get perspectives from different people on the planet. And it really makes you realize and appreciate, at least it did me, Kenny, how just incredible our industry is and the people that are in our industry are. So be sure to check it out.
The interesting thing we brought up at lunch today was that Spencer was a teacher in college, and he could tell whether a student had spent time overseas or not, or abroad, because it opened up their perspectives. They drew differently. He's an artist instructor, art professor, and I think that happens with controls, and I think it happens with our industry too. Is that when you see how many people are coming into the same cluster of products, and they're all systems integrated. They're all very similar, even though they're in different countries. They're doing the same thing, and the sharing that goes on. People have USB stick thumb drives in their pockets, and they're going back and forth sharing stuff, sharing applications, because basically it's just an opportunity to learn different ways to skin the cat. Pushing air and water through a building sounds easy, but there's always a better way to do it, a more efficient way, and greater operational savings are offered by listening to what other people do and how they do it. So great opportunity to learn a lot in a very short period of time.
It really is, Kenny, really is. All right, Big Dog, what do we have up first this week?
Well, this is some bread and butter stuff. This is basically Functional Devices announced that they made improvements to their air handling unit fan safety alarm circuits, and they've really come up with some innovative ideas. They've taken some very simple, basic things and made some great improvements so that you get economy of your products. And these things give you options with dip switches. You can change to normally open and normally close. But they give you basically the improvements they made was a 24-volt AC or DC power input with one master relay and a choice of either 6, 4, or 2 alarm circuits. But some of the application benefits is that you can do both the supply and return fan for VFDs can be controlled without adding additional relays. They give you removable terminals, provide better conductor and isolation and other board components. You can make the outputs dry or wet. So it's just another ingenious product from Functional Devices, and there's an opportunity to fill out a form. So if you want more data and more application information, go to the website, hit the hot button, and then fill out the form, and they will send you more information.
No, Kenny, it really is. And Functional Devices, so innovative. As you said, the rib relay, they developed that. They're always coming up with really clever, innovative products. They are sponsors of the ControlTrends Awards. They did very well the last several years. They've been there and supported us. They are also vendor members of Controls Group North America, so we'll be seeing them down in Savannah this week. And Kenny, one of the really cool things that they have at CGNA is they have a product showcase. So all the vendors that support Controls Group North America are there with their latest and greatest products. So we'll have the opportunity to get together and go and hopefully do some video type product reviews while we're down at CGNA. And Functional Devices, I don't know about you, but they're one of the first ones I want to get on my list to stop by and see and talk to.
Absolutely, Eric. And then Honeywell's also going to be there, and our next post is a real interesting post because it involves two things that we're tracking, and one's new technology, and this is a Honeywell Radar Level control for live. It was also live stream training done at the Stromquist Company. You got to tell us a little bit more about that, and how it's catching more and more popular, and how different people from around the country are taking the opportunity to take advantage of that live stream training. But this product here is measures. It's an incredible ability to measure storage tanks, and they've got a whole bunch of application challenges that it resolves. Like it'll do distillation tanks, blending tanks, process tanks, separators, and then also silos with grain, and so it'll take on liquids as well as product dust, grain, so solids, and it's looks like it's going to be a very interesting technology. It's going to get up there with the. So we're going to have to make an edit point here because
we've got all kinds of level control, and I tell you, Kenny, we're a Honeywell industrial process control distributor as well. So about 40% of our business is actually process controls and stuff like that. So we're very proud to have the Honeywell product line. They do all kinds of cool things from single loop control to flow measurement to level measurement. And when you get in on the industrial side, Kenny, there's all kinds of things levels that need to be measured. There are different ways to do it, but radar is a really cool way to do it, Kenny. And we had the privilege of it's a new product for Honeywell. We had the privilege of being one of the first people in the country to sell one of these. So Tom Brantz from Honeywell came in and did a presentation, which we live streamed it out. And if you watch the video cast or listen to the podcast, you know that we really think that's one of the big trends. And at Stromquist Company, we've invested heavily in the technology to be able to do that. So what it allows people to do is if you actually have time to participate, but you can't be in the building.
Right.
So it allows you to basically participate, and you can ask questions via chat. So we had several people that were on doing that. As a matter of fact, a special shout out to Abel, a.k.a. the Controls Freak. Abel was on watching the video cast this week. And then the other thing we do with that is that we will archive the videos so that if you actually miss the ability to watch it live stream and participate, you can always go back and you can watch the archive, or you can do a combination of it. So you could be somebody that could come into Stromquist Company, participate live, and then have the archive later on that you could go back and refer to. So, as Kenny and I, we say Kenny and I are really, really big believers in that you have to make the training content available on the technician's time schedule, and that's one of the things we endeavor to do at ControlTrends.
Right, Eric, I lost the thread there for a second because the old stuff was you had float controls, capacitance, ultrasonic, and each one had its benefits and its setbacks, where they had turbulence and you had to deal with it. But this uses a new technology that uses electromagnetic pulses along a rigid or flexible conductor. So some neat stuff there from Honeywell.
Yeah, very, very cool. All right, Big Dog, what we have up next?
All right, Eric, next we had the 2014 ControlTrends Awards highlight. Reel again, we had the Peripheral Product of the Year, and we had George Thomas up there representing Contemporary Controls for winning the Peripheral Product of the Year, and well done to Contemporary Controls.
Yeah, absolutely. We're big George Thomas fans, Contemporary Controls. If you ever are looking for routers and stuff like that, these guys are a great source for that. George was also inducted into the Hall of Fame this year at the ControlTrends Awards, and you can actually see that video on ControlTrends as well. We posted that earlier in the year. Kenny, we're about to wrap. We got a couple more videos we'll talk about on this week's show, and then we got a couple more next week that we've got to get edited and posted. And then we will have the grand finale, which our crazy Prussian, Russian, Pragian genius videographer Vlad has been working on. So Vlad was at the ControlTrends Award. He put together the highlight reel last year. We have commissioned him to do it again this year, and that is going to be something special. So that will be the piece de resistance. When we get everything else posted, we'll follow it up with Vlad's video, and then we'll be looking forward to the 2015 ControlTrends Awards in Orlando, Florida. And Kenny, did I mention it's not too early to come on as a sponsor? As a matter of fact, we got a couple of them already. We got Mad Mike and Easy IO are back on, and Sierra Monitor has come on as a platinum sponsor for the 2015 ControlTrends Awards. They're going to be held in Orlando, Florida.
Righto, Eric. And I'll tell you, the shows are amazing. We track trends, and what was very interesting for us to find out this week, and you captured the first one where it was CB Richard Ellis to purchase, they did acquire Environmental Systems, Inc., or ESI, Paul Oswald, he's the president. But this is one of those things where we can actually look back through ControlTalk Now's approximately a year and 3 months when we talked about the visions that certain leaders in our industries have. And one of them was Jim Young out at Realcomm, IBCOM, and how he said that the 2014 was going to begin the paradigm changes in our industry and how things were going to ultimately, they're going to keep reducing duplicities in the system and making things work. And they were in the hunt for master systems integrators. And we actually went booth to booth, and you and I interviewed several companies, and we came across, the top firm at the time, I believe, was ESI, because they had such an enormous footprint already. They were in, they had over 2,500, buildings and just a whole lot of space. And these guys were the experts on networks and building automation, energy savings, and operational savings. And guess what happens? They get bought out because now you can consolidate two great, channels and two great players in the business. And for instance, ESBI is providing the analytics-driven management services to over 180 million square feet of facilities at 2,800 sites throughout the U.S. Now, having CB Richard Ellis is going to increase that capacity to a global. The size of CB Richard Ellis is just, we're going to actually come into that size in the next, not the next post, but the post after, because they weren't done. When they made the acquisition of ESI, they made another critical acquisition that we'll talk about here in a second.
Oh, Kenny. Jim Young, a.k.a. the profit of our industry. It was, Kenny, it was a year. We're down there April 22nd with Jim Young, and we were actually on our way. We were to cover the CGNA meeting out in San Diego last year, and then from there we went to the Niagara Summit in Las Vegas. It was our road trip, our ode to Jack Kerouac, if you will, on the road. But Jim, I also remember Kenny kind of looked at us and said, "You guys might want to sell your businesses." So it was a bit daunting. And now it's coming a bit clearer. So it's interesting, Kenny, the ramifications of this. So let's think about this. So CB Richard Ellis, one of the biggest real estate companies on the planet, one of the most well-run, has bought one of the best systems integrators on the planet. So, a theme we've talked a good bit about, Kenny, is the whole concept of redefining competition, that competition is taking on different flavors, different nuances. And here you go. So what does this do to our industry? What does CB Richard Ellis do? I mean, now they've got one of the best integrators. Are they now going to be standardized on that product? That I think Paul Oswalt was a Snyder Electric guy. So does this also, by inference, mean that Snyder Electric now has all of CB Richard Ellis's business? Are they going to, wow, what does that do? What does that do to their network? Snyder goes direct through contractors. They go direct through integrators. What does that do to their distribution network, if you will, through integrators? How does that change it? What's that going to do to the local guy when they bought their own integrator? So this might be the tipping point, Kenny. This might be the tip of the iceberg. What's to say that somebody's not going to go buy a manufacturer? I mean, maybe Mad Mike Marston and EZIO, they don't get bought by a controls manufacturer. Maybe they get bought by a big real estate hub if they ever decide to sell. Who knows? But I tell you what, want to know your thoughts and comments. I think this is the tip of the iceberg here. I think we're going to see more of these type of consolidations, if you will. But to my knowledge, Kenny, we've never seen a consolidation like this in our industry where a real estate consortium has bought a systems integrator.
Well, it makes perfect sense, Eric. And you know what? We'll just go ahead and do part B of the CB Richard Ellis purchase, because they don't stop with ESI. And you're absolutely, everything you said there is absolutely correct, because you're taking, if it's like being able to pick the fastest gun in the West, and get them into your organization where they can help resolve all the, they make everything transparent because they know all the ins and outs of the business, from the nuts and bolts of the equipment all the way to the integration at the highest levels. With all the silos are gone. These guys can make it all happen and make it work, and they're very accomplished. Paul Oswalt, he comes from the Tridiumâ realm, but CB Richard Ellis also is to purchase Johnson Controls Global Workplace Solutions business for $1.475 billion. And just to I have to read some of this just to kind of get the scale here, how big it is. The company announced, CB Richard Ellis Group announced its intentions. Well, let's see here. Johnson said in September 2014 that they were going to divest Global World Solutions, and CB Richard Ellis Group, or CBRE Group Inc. Bought them. But the agreement includes a 10-year strategic relationship between the two companies. Johnson Controls will be the preferred provider of HVAC equipment, building automation systems, and related services to 5 billion square feet portfolio of the real estate and corporate facilities managed by the global CB Richard Ellis and also GWS. Now, there's two things here, like you hit both of them on nails on the head there. It said that the agreement provides Johnson Controls with new channels for its offerings. So when their controls are being developed, they've got an ongoing beta site, alpha and beta site forever. But it says fully operational, expected to generate up to $500 million of annual incremental revenue for Johnson Controls building efficiency business. I mean, you talk about a win-win situation. And then in conjunction with the agreement, CB Richard Ellis will also provide Johnson Controls with a full suite of integrated corporate real estate services, including facility management, project management and transactional services on more than 50 million square feet of Johnson's Controls owned properties. So you talk about a win-win-win. But then we also saw, like, I think Yardi was actually the first one to make the move when they bought out Lobos.
Lobos, yeah, that's
in
right.
Alliance, because but that was on a smaller scale. Now this is in a huge. This magnitude has gone up, to the 10th power here. And you're talking billions of dollars now. What's going to happen next? I mean, there's so many moving pieces here, and so much strategy that's going to go on that this is going to affect the distribution business entirely. It's going to, like you just said, EasyIO, instead of them running through distribution, they might become the necessary component for everybody to achieve their maximum efficiencies. Now, it's not going to happen overnight, but you've got to think of what the other players, what the other manufacturers, the other control manufacturers are going to be doing, because this was probably took a long time to build. If Johnson said they were going to divest in 2014 September, and here we are, mid-April 2015. There was a lot of time and a lot of strategies being done. And I'm just wondering what everybody else has got up their sleeves and what the impacts are going to be in our HVAC industry.
Wow, you better hope they have some up their sleeves. So, all right, so let's break this down again. So what I'm hearing with that second purchase, so Paul Oswald, I think, was primarily Schneider Electric. So now, is ESI now going to become a Johnson dealer because of this other acquisition? I mean, wow. I mean, so think of the ramifications of that too. Think of what you could do as a manufacturer if you got that much of an installed base. What can that do to your economies of scale for manufacturing, for predicting how much you need to sell, and then how much more competitive are you going to be because you've got this huge base already established of products, so you're able to manufacture more products at lower cost because you've got the stuff sold. A brilliant move.
I know, but what it also could do is there won't be any competition. In other words, it's going to be a one channel. It's going to be from start to finish. It's going to be one flavor, because that flavor is basically it's the flavor of corporate choice. It's not going to be there's not going to be bidding. There's not going to be anything. It's going to be it's going to just be a matter of somebody doing an incredible logistic scheme and come up with the most ultimate ability to track everything and provide parts and pieces as they're needed from the manufacturer to the end user.
Well, and Kenny, this goes right to an age-old tenet, if you will, that people hold, that competition makes us better, right? So here's a question you got to ask: is that lack of competition then going to make not drive the innovation? I mean, there's and I don't know the answer to this, but there's a school of thought that says that, hey, the more competition you have, the better, because it drives innovation. Now, the book that you and I read with Peter Thiel, 0 to 1, he would argue the opposite of that if you have a monopoly and then you can focus and you're not having to compete allows you not to cut corners, but to build a better mousetrap, if you will, because you're not responding to somebody else's lower price or whatever.
Plus, you get the margins, and you don't have to shave your margins. You're not just taking the same thing and making another version of it. You're creating a whole new concept, and that's what they've done. You've created a new monopoly. In other words, so what this has done, this has become a one. They went from 0 to 1, and right now they're going to be able to maintain whatever their business models were and whatever they thought that, so Johnson Controls selling to CB Richard Ellis at whatever they agreed to do it, and CB Ellis said to Johnson, we'll provide these services for all your buildings for whatever they decided. Right now there's no competition, and that's what Peter Thiel was off. He said that's why we have patents with 17 years protection, is to protect that little product that's been patented. Even though we say we're all about competition, if we were all about competition, you couldn't have 17-year patents, because then that's not competition. That's a monopoly you're given to somebody for 17 years. So you're seeing this really hit our industry right square in the middle. And
yeah, well, I tell you what. And so here's my question for you, Kenny, and for our Control Trends audience. Again, please reach out in comments. I mean, I think we should dialogue about this. Kenny and I are just two guys with a perspective. We would definitely like to get yours, but my question is there going to be an unintended consequences here? What are the unintended consequences going to be? So, for example, if you are a Schneider integrator, and that's what you do, are your loyalties now going to shift because you're not going to get this piece anymore of CB Richard Ellis? Is that going to be an unintended consequence for Johnson Partners? Are they going to go, hey, you're going around us, you're bypassing us, or is it going to cost them on that end of it? I just don't know. Is it going to cost CB Richard Ellis because now they've got their eggs in one basket?
Well, Eric, how about this? How about CB Richard Ellis makes, buys the equipment they need, whether it's the HVAC, whether it's a York chiller, the York ventilator. I mean, whatever York makes, and it's going to go into the CB Richard Ellis's real estate portfolio. And then you have ESI there to be the contracting leg and arm and mind to make it all work. Yeah. So you're looking at somebody that's has got all the pieces pretty much lined up that they might not be able to control all the real estate in the world, but what they do have is going to be very well organized and very well managed. And then once they get that services down, then they're going to go out and compete for other the global world services are going to be able to come in and say, hey, we've got this thing. There's no more guesswork here.
Yeah, we're dialed into it. So, wow, big change. I think, Kenny, this is a watermark event. I think this is the type of thing that we'll look back years from now, and our children look back years from now and say, that was the day the music died. How does that song go? Bye-bye, Miss American Pie.
Well, again, it's great to be, and sometimes, I over-dramatize it, but, it's to create the effect. And to make people think, because we don't get a whole lot of feedback anymore like we used to, because the people that are in the professions they can't really speak their piece publicly because they've got they've got a job to do, and they've got a corporation that they honor and respect, but everybody's concerned about it because it is going to impact. It is going to change the way we think and do regular business. The cheese is moving all over the board, and if you're not running after it, or actually maybe not running after the cheese, but coming up, like you said, with a new way to compete, to participate in this new business model, this new channel, because it's not magic. They're still going to need a lot of people. There's a lot of maintenance that has to be done. There's a lot of service work, but when you can get the economies of scale at all the points, so you got a manufacturer that can make, like you said, they know exactly, kind of like cars. They know how many units are going to make now because they have a destination, so they can control all the cars on that train. And then they've got the people that they know are going to be scheduled to do it, integrate it. Now they're going to use all that IoT, so they're going to constantly keep. The larger that gets, the greater their economy of scale, the greater savings they're going to be able to offer. The more energy they're going to be able to save, the greater negotiations they're going to be able to make with power and utility companies. I mean, it just really gets into be a very heady type of possibility.
Well, it does, Kenny. You and I talked about this off air, and we've always heard that grow or die, and just about everybody we know is endeavoring to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and I'm beginning to question that strategy as we begin to notice how competition gets redefined, and how things change. I'd mentioned to you that we have one customer that makes a very good living. He's got 5 customers. He basically deals with 5 of the universities here in the Atlanta area. He does everything for him. So he comes and picks the parts up. He's a big customer of ours, but you can't touch these universities because this guy provides a level of service that nobody can. So instead of him trying to get bigger, he stays profitable and he stays lean. He focuses on a niche that nobody can really touch because of the level of service he gives them, and that's what they want. So they're willing to pay more for that because he creates value. So I think that's going to be the question for our distributor brothers and sisters, and could be even a topic at CGNA, is, okay, so how do you compete and how do you create value in these changing times? Because I'm not sure. I think trying to get bigger might be a fool's errand now for most people, right? Unless you're just willing to be bought and you're going to be a part of a bigger conglomerate. And then what we've seen over and over, Kenny, is, and I don't think this is going to happen with CB Richard Ellis. I think they're way too smart for that, or ESI. But what we've seen in our industry is, several distributors that get gobbled up and they get bought by these Wall Street companies, and every 3 or 4 years they're getting bought and sold again, and the service levels just, for the ones I know of anyway, just go way, way down. And one of our buddies that they got bought, he kind of got a sweet deal. He's on his last legs and sort of makes no bones about it. So he's willing to open up and talk about it. But he says these Wall Street guys will basically come in and they'll say, okay, we need a 20% return on EBITDA, what they've invested, and whoever's the poor guy that's running the show will go, hey, that is just not going to happen in this marketplace. And they'll just say, well, you got 1 or 2 things. You can either cut your salary or you can figure out how to do it. So it becomes, a quarterly surviving quarter to quarter. We see it a lot with the big corporations, it's earnings season. They've got to cut costs to make earnings. So it's sort of, again, indicative of the U.S. economy anyway. Everything's focused on growth. And I don't know, you spent a lot of time in Germany and did business in Germany, Kenny. I mean, is that true in Europe from your experience, or are they more focused on value?
I think it's a hybrid concept. I think a lot of the push coming to the North American continent is coming out of Europe. I think the Europeans have gone through this a little bit earlier. When I was in Europe, they looked over at America and said that's the next market, and that was back 1990, 91, 92. But so they've come over. Siemens came over in a big way. Schneider came over in a big way. You've seen all kinds of consolidation. So to go back and answer maybe what the quarter-to-quarter mentality is going to cause a lot of issues when people can't deliver the service that they've promised. So you're going to see a lot of transition. You're going to see people looking for new partners. And if you're doing something well, but what I think with CG&A and the new technologies, every time new technology comes out, you have to see where it fits into the offerings, the service offerings that you have, so that you may we're coming up on another post here where one of the more prodigious thinkers in our industry says you might have to talk to your customers and you might have to reestablish the new dialogue with them. You have to tell them the things that you can't do anymore. You have to tell them the things that they need to start doing, or you can't be responsible for it. And so there's going to be a constant upgrade of your talents. It's like playing cards. You were trying to get a straight, or you're trying to collect the hearts, and now hearts have gone sour. So you've got to pick up another suit that you're good at, that you have a chance of winning a lot of hands with. So I think it's a great. While there's a lot of concern, there's a lot of possibilities, because you see a lot of new companies coming, especially out from both sides, east and west, but they're coming into our markets with new technology that aren't as heavy-handed. They're not as software-based. Everything's coming ready to go, and in some of our industries, turning into almost like the audiovisual or the office, where the computers and the printers and everything works. You get on the network, and there's no silly dalliances between different protocols. And the people that are putting those kind of controls together and putting those kind of open platforms and using the latest technology, they're all of a sudden coming in as doing certain things in a building that they've knocked 30-40% of the cost out of it, because there's no initial cost, there's no software cost, there's no annual licensing fees. There's just, this is the product, it works, and this is the warranty. Take it. You can probably do it yourself, menu driven, or whatever, and then the systems integrator that can scale that into their existing portfolio is going to be busy for the foreseeable future.
Well said, Kenny. Well said. Well, we'll keep tracking this, the new face of competition in the building automation controls industry and the HVAC controls industry. Kenny, I think the other thing is nobody's unscathed with this. I mean, manufacturers are at risk, obviously. Distributors are at risk. Contractors are at risk. So it's interesting times we live in.
Changing partners. What was that, Stephen Stills? When the one song?
That was Love the One You're With.
No. It's Changing Partners. I forget how it goes, but
or how about the times they are changing, man? Bob Dylan. I don't know. We could definitely come up with some musical metaphors for this stuff, but it is changing, and sort of fascinating times. Kenny, I tell you what, we'll reach out to Jim Young, the prophet, see if maybe we can get him to come on and tell us a little bit, get his perspective. I'm planning on being out in San Antonio at Ibicon Realcomm show. I know you have a conflict there, but it'd be great to talk to Jim there, or if not sooner, and try and get our community some more insight from some different perspectives. I know CB Richard Ellis is real big out there. It might be great if we could connect with some of those folks and talk to them as well. But the prophet predicted it, baby. He looked at us and said, "You might want to sell your businesses."
Well, and I'm sure that it's going to have its place in the Realcomm. I think they have their schedule pretty well done, but this will find its way in there as an "I told you so." I think, and rightfully so. And either he's got crystal ball, or he works with the realty companies and the real estate companies well enough to know that they were looking very hard to scale to line up systems integrators, come up with real true master systems integrators. Remember 2 years ago we went out there and talked about that, and he actually asked us to give him help come up with kind of like a working knowledge of who all would be interested and can do that nationwide portfolio service, even on a global scale. And we're finally seeing 2 years later the first ramifications of that search. The first
but I'm wondering, Kenny, because I think CB Richard Ellis is always on the cutting edge of stuff. I wonder if maybe nobody really stepped up with the scale they needed, so they, instead of trying to hire it, they just bought it.
Well, that's kind of what I think they were intending to do it.
Yeah.
I think once you find somebody and they pass the acid test and they do the due diligence and they realize that this is the real way to go about it, then they try to take it to the economy of scale where they're going to get the maximum benefit.
Yeah.
Not just in one part of the country, or because I think they're Los Angeles based, but and that's where probably the largest cluster of most expensive real estate in our country is out. The whole West Coast area, and of course there's a lot more, the whole East Coast too, from D.C. up to Boston. It's real heavy-duty real estate, and they need people that can deliver the goods that we're trying to sell, deliver the end product. And ESI was just one of those wonderful companies that they had it all. They were always they were always up on the stage, telling us where things were going. And look what Paul Oswald said about, if you don't have so much of your staff on boards 30 years or younger, you're already in trouble.
Yeah, that's right. No, he's great. We've covered a lot of his stuff. Very wise guy. I tell you what would be interesting to me too, Kenny, is Rick Warner, a.k.a. the Innovator. If you're listening, we'd love to get a response from you on this, see what your thoughts are and how it might affect the industry. So I'd be interested to hear from guys like Rick, guys like Scott Cochran, Brian Turner, some of the really bright minds in our industry. Of course, Mark Peacock would be interesting what he has to say as well. So, Kenny, I tell you what, we could go on and on about this, and I suspect we will over the next months and years. But what else did we cover last week?
Well, I think just to talk about the systems integrators decide what is your liability appetite, and this was a great seminal post on cybersecurity, cyber threats, and the change that's going to happen within the industries, and especially with the systems integrators. But Fred Gordy is he's a technology evangelist for the McKenneyâs Enterprise Intelligence Group. He's responsible for the strategic technology for the automation and control solutions teams. Fred's worked with the military. He's worked with Chevron Energy. This guy here is the real McCoy, and he put together what I think is one of the most comprehensive articles on the way our industry evolved, the way the systems integrator went from being kind of a really good guy with equipment, then a self-taught guy with computers and integration, and then certified and required different AX, Niagara, Johnson, FX, Honeywell Webs, and it just kind of ate up the next challenge. Then got to know how to do IT and routers, and was able to do things for his customers, and basically didn't have an opportunity or didn't have the fear of mind, the threat that was happening. So you've got to read this article about what the Fred ends the thing saying that after giving some of these presentations, people walk out saying, well, this is a no-win situation. We can't do anything about this. We cannot stop it. And so I'm coming to the end conclusion where he stresses that you can't be a jack of all trades and afford to be not a master of cybersecurity. If you're going to do it, then you're going to have new dialogues, new conversations, and really get support from every player in the organization, because it's that important, it's that serious. But he was saying how he came out of the one of the meetings he was at, where everybody was kind of like just their mouths were open, and they were like well, we can't do anything about it, And he said that you can. What you do is you decide what you're going to, where you're going to decide your liability. At what point are you going to either try to do it all or tell your customer you can't do it at all? He says, in closing, I heard the statement a few months ago at a cyber panel. This is a problem for which there is no solution. Scary thought, right? It means you will have to change how you do business. You may decide to drop some of the services you were offering to your customers. It may mean that you have to have an uncomfortable conversation with your customer to explain to them what you set up in the past and how you may have put them into a vulnerable state now. And you will have to change your company's culture, and in some of your organization will either think you're overreacting or it could never happen to your company. But the truth is it could happen to your company, and if it does, what are you going to say to people when your brand is so damaged that the doors are closed and no one has a job? Well, that's some pretty sobering conversation there. And Fred does a great article on it.
Fred is a really, really bright guy, Kenny. He's here in Atlanta. We heard him speak at Niagara last year. He was on the security panel, the cybersecurity panel. Very, very bright guy, Kenny. Very nice guy. Super nice guy. As a matter of fact, he has agreed he's going to come on and start blogging on Control Trends on a regular basis. Fred's also going to be doing a security show, so he's going to be bringing in some of the great security experts that we will be able to video and put on Control Trends. So this is a trend that Kenny and I have been tracking for quite some time, which is the whole cybersecurity thing and your liabilities with that. I can't think of a better guy, Ken, to keep our community informed than Fred Gordy. So we're really, really tickled that Fred's going to be working with us on this. And so Fred will be on. I think he's already got a couple of guests lined up for his first video show. So can't wait to get that done. So Fred, along with Sierra Monitor, have come on with some informative shows that we will be producing and promoting on Control Trends for the benefit of our Control Trends community.
All right, Eric. I'll tell you again. I think if you go to the Control Trends, click on Fred's post, and if you read that, it's a very long post because it's a seminal piece of the collective information that he has, the ideas, the next steps. But everybody has a role, and I feel sometimes that I don't know if it's possible to tell some of the customers that we have that you think they could be vulnerable when they think they've got everything under control. So it's one of those things you have to straddle and know your limits and know where your responsibilities lie. But that was Fred's point: is decide your liability, which is a very interesting way to put it.
Yeah, well, he's articulate, Kenny, and very, very bright. So again, Fred, thanks so much for your support, and to our Control Trends community. You're in for a real treat with this guy. Check the article out, like Kenny said, and stay tuned for some more stuff because he will knock your socks off. What do we have up next, big dog?
All right, the final post for this week, Eric, is the 2014 Control Trends Awards. Again, on the red carpet with a bunch of smiley, handsome faces. We had the twins and John Petsy and SkyFoundry. Congratulations to the team for winning the 2014 Control Trends Awards Building Analytics Software of the Year. SkyFoundry's SkySpark analytics software automatically analyzes building, energy, equipment, and data to identify issues, faults, and opportunities to improve performance and operational savings. I was on SkyFoundry's site in preparation for the post, and I can't believe the amount of success they've had all over the world. Just look at the partners. Look at the partners from the United States, Canada, the Middle East, and Asia, Europe, Middle East, and then Asia. These guys have really come up with the SkySpark analytics software. It has just incredible success. It works, and it's probably very good for us all and the industry at large. Smart grids, everybody benefits. And congratulations to John Petsy. Talk about the twins for a second there, Eric.
Well, the twins, what can you say about it? Tom Shurtleff and Rob Murchison are out of Charlotte, North Carolina. And these guys, again, we've heard them speak a couple of times at Realcomm Ibicon. What they basically do is, their premise, and it makes so much sense, is you have to get buy-in from all your team members. It's not just about putting an automation system in or an analytics package. You really got to understand everybody on the team's objectives and goals, get them to all buy in. And that's what these guys do. They specialize in that, Kenny. So these guys are super, super sharp. As a matter of fact, we're hoping to get those guys on for a show here real soon. But it was good to see them up on stage. They actually presented the award to John Petsy. And John's just a fantastic guy. We will be seeing John, Kenny, in a couple weeks at Haystack Connect, which we'll be covering. And that's about the middle of May, I believe. So we'll be out there. So we'll be seeing John. And I guess you were telling me that John's got a lot of talents, including he's a pretty darn good drummer. So they're going to have a band out there playing, right?
Yeah, that's it. I don't want to give away the whole story, but what I read about it is that that's a closing act, and they're going to be playing till 11 o'clock on Thursday night, I believe. And everybody that was in the group was an old stalwart in the industry. Ron Bernstein was the lead singer. He looked pretty cool out there. And it showed a picture from, I think, 10, 12 years ago. But one further just comment on Bob and Tom was that they won the PTALK Award in recognition for the services they've provided throughout the years. And just by doing what they're doing, they've educated a lot of people. They gave out these cards at what was it, the Realcomm?
Yeah, Realcomm, and we saw them at the Niagara Summit too.
At the Niagara Summit, and basically, I still have that card because it talks about the dialogue. It starts. What you have to do is just begin anywhere, at any one of these particular things on their checklist, and then you don't have to do it all at once. But the most important thing they said was that everybody has to speak the same, have the same understanding in the conversation. And that in order for an organization to get to their objectives, they have to define the objectives. But then everybody has to understand that the information, how it impacts them, and they have to feed back into it. And it was a really interesting presentation on organizational deafness. How you've got the facility manager wants it, and
Wow.
this guy wants it, but the other people don't want it. They don't know what you're talking about. It has nothing to do with them. That's they want to play it. And he says that's they break those barriers down and get that one dialogue that everybody understands.
That's good stuff. Well, we got to get more from those guys, Kenny. They're really impressive guys, and it was great to see them win the PTOC award this year. And that is one video I don't have edited yet. But, again, we will be finishing those up probably next week. And then the piece de resistance will be Vlad's video to sort of culminate the 2014 ControlTrends Awards. So, Big Dog, I tell you what, you and I head to Savannah here on Tuesday. And we'll be down there. We'll be covering that from Savannah, the CGNA conference. Then we'll be out at Haystack Connect. So with that, Kenny, I tell you what, I think we got some birthday cake and a couple of beers with our names on it. So what do you say? Is a wrap? Anything else you want to hit on before we call it?
That's it, Eric. Like I say, next week already there's things lined up that our HVAC and integration business or industries seem to hit some kind of a high gear here recently, and we already have 3 or 4 really important posts lined up for next week, and I believe Fred Gordy is going to be back with us. We're going to do an unboxing.
Oh, we meet him tomorrow. Fred's coming by tomorrow to do some video interviews with us tomorrow.
And then
so we'll get to see him. Hey, Kenny, real quick before we hop off, you were telling me about a really cool product that Siemens has. We haven't put a post on it yet, I don't think, on Control Trends. Tell me about that thermostat and the application you had for the. We
actually did.
You might have put a post up here, but
no, your girl did.
Stacy.
Stacy put a post up the day it came out, and then and I remember reading it because it's. In other words, Siemens is in the thermostat game, just like Johnson and some of the other guys. They've really come out with a good thermostat. I mean, this is a high quality commercial thermostat that gives you all the benefits and bells and whistles, touchpad, the pretty white European casing around the thermostat, but it gives you the opportunity to do certain configurations, and we had a large hotel suite industry where they wanted to run heating and cooling at the same time to prevent mildew. They have very vaulted ceilings and a really pretty area where they got to really deal with humidification issues, and the RYD 2000 has the humidity sensor on board. So everything this guy needed, he discovered it at the HR show, and it's turned out to be, it could turn into a very large purchase, but it's a very well designed product. So the more I got to learn about it, the more I realized it was, when we went through the process of elimination, we took 12 thermostats and paired them away. As one couldn't do this, it went to the side, and it couldn't do this, so that we had maybe 3 left. The 3 manufacturers that could do it, they each did it differently. One sold it through components, wireless components, which would have certainly met the application, but it wasn't convenient enough for him, and he was concerned about installation issues and whatever. So I just give Siemens hats off that they've put a lot of engineering thought into it, and Robert is going to be down there. Bob Byron, the product manager, he's going to be at the CGNA show too, and I'm looking forward to meeting him because he's a bright guy. He really knows that product well.
We got to get this. But Kenny, I had no idea. I had read all that stuff, and because I just moved into a new home, and Kenny was looking. I've got some high ceilings, and Kenny was going, well, this thermostat, because it has a humidity sensor built onto it, it's one of the few onboard thermostats where you can just have it all built into one stat, where you can do dehumidification. So I'm thinking about getting a couple of them for my house, because with the high ceilings and the humidity we have here, I need to be able to dehumidify. So that really opened my eyes to those possibilities.
It's a commercial stat, because the other ones couldn't run heating and cooling together. They could run heating or cooling. And so that was another criteria where you had to be able to run both.
Yeah,
and then set the level.
So we will definitely get with those guys at the product show from Siemens next week down in Savannah, and we'll have them do a little product demo on that too. So, Kenny, but listen, let's go get that birthday cake and beer. I'm Eric Stromquist. He is the man, the myth, the legend. Thank you so much for listening to the Smart Buildings podcast and or watching the video podcast. We really appreciate you touching base. We will see you next week. Until then, remember, stay in control.
Indeed, Eric.
Indeed, Kenny Smyers.